So it looks like the world got it wrong when it comes to Kandi and Todd's divorce. As you know, it was just reported yesterday that she was going to pay him $426,000, a far cry.
Y'all, everything you thought you knew about Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker just got flipped upside down, and the truth is messier, darker, and way more calculated than anyone expected. For weeks, the internet ran wild with one explosive narrative. Kandi was about to hand over millions, a $2 million divorce payout that had everyone screaming, Todd hit the jackpot. Blogs, headlines, comment sections, they all painted the same picture. A powerful woman, allegedly drained. A husband, supposedly walking away richer. And behind it all, years of whispers that Kandi takes care of men. But now, that entire story is collapsing in real time. Because Kandi just broke her silence, and what she revealed doesn't just correct the rumor, it exposes how badly the public got played. That $426,000 payment? It wasn't a payout. It wasn't support. It wasn't even a favor. It was a calculated move buried deep inside a split of hidden assets. Properties no one ever saw, deals no one fully understood, numbers that were never meant to go public. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Why were those properties sealed? What exactly was being protected? And if everything was equal, why does it still feel like something isn't adding up? This wasn't a messy breakup. No screaming matches. No public chaos. Just silence, signatures, and a number that triggered a narrative powerful enough to fool millions. But now that narrative is cracking, and what's underneath might be even more shocking than the lie itself.
That it's not exactly the way that we think. It's not Kandi paying Todd anything extra. It's so that they both walk away when dividing up their assets, that they walk away with each walking away equal. So technically,
y'all, the internet thought it had the story figured out. A powerful woman, a messy divorce, and a man allegedly walking away with millions. But what if everything you heard was engineered to sound worse than it really was? Because when it comes to Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker, the truth isn't just different, it's disturbingly calculated. At first, the narrative exploded overnight. Headlines pushed one number, $2 million. Social media ran with it. People didn't question it. They reacted. Fast. Aggressive. Emotional. The comments flooded in. Todd secured the bag. Kandi got played. Mama Joyce warned us. And just like that, the story wasn't about a divorce anymore. It became a public execution of Kandi's image. But then a second number surfaced. Not $2 million. Not even close. $426,000. And suddenly the story didn't make sense anymore. Why would a woman like Kandi, who built an empire, who understands business, contracts, leverage, just hand over hundreds of thousands for no reason? Why no alimony? Why no child support? Why such a clean split in a world where celebrity divorces usually turn into war zones? That's when things started to feel off. Because behind that $426,000 figure was something no one was talking about. Properties, assets, equity, things that don't trend, things that don't go viral, things that require people to actually think. According to what Kandi revealed, that money wasn't a loss. It wasn't even a gain for Todd. It was a correction, a financial adjustment to make sure both parties walked away with equal value after dividing what they built together.
So other details that were revealed in the divorce in regards to physical custody, they will share joint legal and physical custody, but decision-making authority is divided. Kandi has final say over non-emergency medical and educational decisions, while Todd...
But here's where the story gets uncomfortable. If everything was so equal, why hide the details? Because buried inside this divorce are sealed records, properties that were never disclosed to the public, locations redacted, values unknown, assets quietly divided behind closed doors. And the reason? Stalking concerns. That's the explanation given. And maybe it's true. But in a world where every detail of celebrity lives gets exposed, when something is deliberately hidden, people start asking questions. What exactly was in those properties? How much were they really worth? And more importantly, who actually walked away with more power? Because let's be clear, money isn't always just money. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's leverage. And sometimes it's the difference between what the public believes and what actually happened behind the scenes. Then there's the structure of the deal itself. No child support, no alimony, joint custody, split responsibilities. On paper, it looks peaceful, almost too peaceful. Kandi gets final say on medical and education decisions. Todd controls extracurriculars and religion. Expenses? Split down the middle. Even the children's exposure to media is tightly controlled. Nothing happens without mutual consent.
While Kandi is responsible for private school tuition if she chooses that option. Both parties also waived alimony permanently.
It's organized, strategic, almost corporate. This doesn't feel like a breakup. It feels like a business separation. And maybe that's what makes it so unsettling. Because while the internet was busy reacting to a number, Kandi and Todd were quietly executing a plan that ensured neither of them lost. No chaos. No public breakdown. No dramatic courtroom battles. Just signatures, silence, and a narrative that spun completely out of control. But here's the real twist. Even after Kandi explained everything, even after she shut down the rumors, people still don't fully believe it. Because once a story goes viral, the truth has to fight twice as hard to catch up. And in this case, the truth might never fully win. Because somewhere between the $2 million lie and the $426,000 reality, there's still a gap. A gap filled with questions no one is answering. And that's exactly where things start to get dangerous.
Just had to pay the difference up. So we're still equal in what we got.
Gotcha.
It's just because I ended up with more on the property side, then I just paid the difference.
And that gap is where the narrative starts to fracture even more. Because once you strip away the headlines, the viral tweets, and the exaggerated numbers, what you're left with isn't just a divorce. It's a carefully structured exit strategy that raises even more questions than answers. Think about it. If this was truly equal, if everything was split down the middle like Kandi Burruss claims, then why did the internet instantly believe she lost? Why did the $2 million rumor spread so fast and feel so believable? That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when there's already a narrative waiting to be confirmed. For years, there's been a quiet whisper surrounding Kandi's relationships, that she's the one holding everything together financially, that she's the one investing, building, maintaining, while the man benefits. And when this divorce hit the public, that whisper turned into a full-blown accusation. So when people saw Kandi pays Todd, they didn't question it. They accepted it, because it fit the story they already believed. But here's where things get even more unsettling. Because according to the actual breakdown, Todd Tucker didn't walk away empty-handed, but he also didn't walk away as the winner people imagined. 6 luxury cars, shared assets, a financial adjustment tied to property equity, not a jackpot, not a takeover, just balance. And yet, even that balance feels off when you start looking closer, because what we don't see matters more than what we do. Those sealed properties, they're the missing piece.
If we didn't sell the properties and we just did based off of, well, I'm going to take these 2, you take whatever, but my properties may be...
We don't know how many there were. We don't know their total value. We don't know who really benefited long-term. And in high-level divorces like this, that's where the real story usually hides, not in the cash, but in the assets that continue to generate wealth long after the headlines fade. Because, let's be honest, $426,000 is a headline number. But properties, equity, ownership, that's legacy money. That's power. And if Kandi walked away holding more of that, then the narrative that she lost completely falls apart. But if Todd secured something equally valuable behind the scenes, then this wasn't just fair. It was negotiated with precision. Almost like both sides knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what they didn't want the public to see. Then there's the image factor. Because while this divorce looks clean on paper, it hit something deeper emotionally. People wanted drama. They expected chaos. They were waiting for cracks, for betrayal, for secrets, for a moment where everything would explode. But it never did. No public breakdowns. No emotional interviews. No messy court battles. Just controlled statements and a quiet insistence that everything was equal. And that silence? It's louder than any scandal. Because in a culture where celebrity divorces usually spiral into spectacle, the absence of drama starts to feel suspicious. Almost like the real story is being handled somewhere else, away from cameras, away from headlines, away from public opinion. And that brings us back to the biggest question of all. If everything is truly equal, why does it still feel like something isn't being said? Because the truth is, people don't just react to numbers. They react to energy. And there's an energy around this situation that doesn't fully settle. An energy that suggests this wasn't just about splitting assets. It was about protecting something. Reputation. Power. Control. Maybe even secrets. Because when 2 people walk away from a marriage this cleanly, this quietly, this strategically, it's usually not because nothing happened. It's because everything was handled before anyone else could see it. And now, all the public is left with is a number, a statement, and a story that still doesn't quite add up. And that's where everything starts to shift from confusion to something far more calculated. Because at this point, it's no longer about what Kandi Burruss said, it's about what the entire situation reveals when you read between the lines. A divorce this clean doesn't just happen. Not in this industry. Not with this level of money, influence, and public scrutiny. So the real question isn't who paid who. The real question is, how is this controlled so perfectly? Because look at the structure again. No alimony. No child support. Joint custody with clearly divided authority. Strict rules about the children's exposure. Assets split in a way that required a precise financial adjustment. Everything about this feels less like a breakup and more like a negotiated exit between 2 parties who understood the stakes. And when 2 people move like that, it usually means one thing. They had everything to lose if things went left. Think about it. Public image, business ventures, brand partnerships, long-term wealth. One messy allegation, one ugly courtroom moment, one emotional breakdown caught on camera, and suddenly, everything they built could start to crack. So instead of letting that happen, they contained it. Silently, strategically, efficiently. And that's why the $2 million rumor becomes even more interesting. Because while it was false, it served a purpose. It created noise. It distracted people. It gave the public something big and dramatic to focus on, while the real details stayed buried underneath layers of legal structure and sealed information. And whether intentional or not, that kind of distraction works. Because most people don't go beyond the headline. They don't question the numbers. They don't analyze the fine print. They react, and then they move on. But when you don't move on, when you actually sit with the story, things start to feel different. Because even the idea of equal starts to lose its meaning. Equal on paper doesn't always mean equal in reality. Equal value doesn't always mean equal control. And equal outcomes don't always mean equal satisfaction. So when Todd Tucker walks away with 6 luxury cars and Kandi keeps 5, when money is transferred to balance property equity, when entire assets remain hidden from public view, you have to ask, who really secured the better position long-term? Because in situations like this, the real winner isn't the one who gets the check. It's the one who walks away with the most leverage after everything is finalized. And that's something the public can't easily measure. Then there's another layer that people aren't talking about enough. The emotional silence. Because while everything looks composed externally, there's an absence of something that usually defines breakups of this scale. Raw emotion. There are no explosive interviews. No tearful confessions. No visible anger. Just calm explanations, controlled narratives, and a consistent message. Everything is equal. But human relationships aren't that simple. Especially not ones that lasted years, built families, and merged lives on every level. So when the emotional side is completely missing from the public space, it raises a different kind of question. Was it truly that smooth, or was it intentionally kept that way? Because sometimes, the most intense situations are the ones that are handled the quietest. Not because they're easy, but because they're being managed. Carefully. Deliberately. And that brings us back to the sealed properties. The part of the story that refuses to fully come into the light. Because no matter how many times the numbers are explained, no matter how clearly the equal split is presented, those hidden assets remain the biggest unknown. And unknowns create speculation. Speculation creates doubt. And doubt keeps a story alive long after it should be over. So even though this divorce is being labeled as clean, even though both sides appear to have walked away without chaos, there's still something lingering beneath the surface. Something unresolved. Not in a legal sense, but in the way the story feels incomplete. Because the public didn't just react to a number. They reacted to a belief. A belief that Kandi was losing. A belief that Todd was winning. A belief that this was another example of a powerful woman being financially drained. And even after that belief was corrected, it didn't fully disappear. Because once people see a narrative play out, it sticks. And maybe that's the final twist in all of this. The truth came out. The numbers were clarified. The story was corrected. But the perception? That's a lot harder to undo. So now we're left in this strange space between fact and feeling, where everything is technically resolved, but nothing feels completely settled. Where the divorce is finalized, but the conversation is far from over. And where 2 people walked away as equals. Yet the world is still trying to figure out what that really means. Because sometimes, the cleanest endings are the ones hiding the most complicated truths. And just like that, the narrative flips, but not completely. Because even after Kandi Burruss shut everything down, even after the numbers were corrected and the rumors exposed, one thing still refuses to disappear: the doubt. The internet doesn't forget. It reshapes. People already chose their version of this story. Some still believe Todd Tucker walked away winning. Others think Kandi outplayed everyone behind the scenes. And that divide, it's exactly what keeps this story alive. Because this was never just about $426,000. It was about perception, power, control, and who really had the upper hand when everything went quiet. You were shown a number, but not the full picture. You were given a statement, but not the full breakdown. You were told it was equal, but never shown what equal actually looks like behind closed doors. And that's where the real story lives. Not in headlines, not in interviews, but in the details that never made it to the public. So now the question isn't what happened, it's what's still being hidden. Because when a divorce this big ends this clean, this fast, and this controlled, it doesn't mean nothing went wrong. It means everything was handled before you could see it. And that should make you look twice. Because the truth didn't just correct the lie, it exposed how easy it was for millions to believe it in the first place. And if that part shook you even a little, then you're finally starting to see what's really going on.